मीनिंग किस किस को समझा हुआ है? पता ही नहीं है हम लोग डिस्कस क्या करने वाले हैं, तो फिर मैं कुछ भी बोल दूंगा। इतना विश्वास है आप लोगों को? बोलिए, कोई एक जन टॉपिक बोलिए। ओके, पायस। पायस इसका अर्थ क्या है, किसी को पता है? नहीं पता, उसके लिए तो लेक्चर सुनना। बोलिए नहीं पता, वरना पता होगा तो फिर लेक्चर क्यों बैठेंगे? ठीक है। So I'll first read the shloka, right? Then shloka, translation, purport. फिर उसके बाद बहुत छोटा purport है इसका, श्रील प्रभुपाद ने बहुत condensed version दिया है, but ये टॉपिक को पूरे भगवद गीता में एक्सप्लेन किया गया, right? So I'll just read the shloka, okay? bhogaiśvarya-prasaktānāṁ tayāpahṛta-cetasām vyavasāya-ātmikā buddhiḥ samādhau na vidhīyate. Bhoga to material enjoyment, aiśvarya and opulence, prasaktānām for those who are attached, tayā by such things, apahṛta-cetasām bewildered in mind, vyavasāya-ātmikā fixed in determination, buddhiḥ devotional service to the Lord, samādhau in the controlled mind, na never, vidhīyate does take place. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Purport: Samadhi means fixed mind. The Vedic dictionary, the Nirukti says, Samyag adhiyate asmin atma tattva yathatmyam. When the mind is fixed for understanding the self, it is said to be in samadhi. Samadhi is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyments and bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of material energy. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Tadati Swapadantika Vande Aham Shri Guru Shri Yudapadakamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Sargana Raghunathanam Sajivam Savadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sargana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritam Shri Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Name Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shringadi Paschata Deshtvaya Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaur Vishe Namaha Namo Brahmadeva Programadikaya Jagadhaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay. So today's topic is interesting topic, right? The dangers of pious materialism. No? So first of all, we are talking about the very first word is dangers, right? So if someone is pious, then what is the danger? Right? We all want to become pious. Piety is so much encouraged in the Vedas and everywhere. लोग बोलते हैं ना कि आपको पुण्य काम करने चाहिए, पुण्य कर्म करने चाहिए, पाप नहीं करना चाहिए. तो फिर उसमें danger क्या है? Materialism means भौतिकतावाद. So that's another thing, right? So to understand that, why is it so? We are going to, elaborate on this particular topic, right? Now, if you look in this thing, what is Lord Krishna, teaching? That the first thing that Lord Krishna teaches throughout the Bhagavad Gita, that spiritual understanding, Atma Tattva, to know you, who you are, and to attain the original position from where you have come from, right? To attain that and the material enjoyment, right? We are living in this world and we are all living outside mostly, okay? So we think that, okay, sometimes we have to Godhead. He must be pure. He must be free from contamination, and he shouldn't have that inclination to enjoy in the material world, practically, right? But what we are seeing in today's society is that our very society is based on bhoga, enjoyment, right? Enjoyment and full of opulences, right? बोला जाता है ना कि इस सृष्टि में क्या है, भगवान ने इंद्रियां दी हैं तो भोग के लिए इंद्रियां दी है ना, सेंसेस दिए तो एंजॉय करने के लिए दिए हैं, वरना देते ही क्यों ना? कितने लोगों ने ऐसा सुना है, कितने लोग इस बात से एग्री करते हैं कि भगवान ने तो सेंस दे रखी है, तो अगर इसका कुछ काम ही नहीं था, इसको एंजॉय नहीं करना था, तो फिर दिया क्यों हमें ना? तो इसका मतलब हमको एंजॉय करना है मटेरियल वर्ल्ड में, राइट? ऐसा बहुत सारे लोगों को बिविल्डर किया जाता है जब नए नए आएंगे भक्ति में, और हम लोगों का इतना we won't be having a clear understanding of what bhakti is. So people from outside, because compared to them we are less trained in spiritual life, right? So we are weak in our spiritual life and they are really strong in their material life, so they can put arguments which are way too strong for us to handle. So this is one of the common arguments which they say, the Lord has given us senses and there are sense objects, so we are supposed to enjoy the sense objects through our senses, right? Otherwise, why would these two things would have been created? There's no point in creating them. The Lord created this thing, so that's the purpose of this, right? But that's not the whole and soul of it, right? There is poison, poison is being created by the God. You have your sense, you need to drink poison. So how many of you are willing to drink poison? That's also created by the God, present in the nature, free of cost. अभी तो उसके लिए भी पैसे देने पड़ रहे हैं, इतना कॉम्प्लेक्स हो गया कि मरने के लिए भी पैसे देना पड़ता है हमको, राइट? तो आप वॉलंटियर करेगा इस चीज के लिए, बट the companies, they make such good sports cars, such lavish bungalows, so much beautiful matajis out there, right? So everyone wants to enjoy these things. आप में से कौन है जो एंजॉय नहीं करना चाहेगा? एंजॉइंग नॉट इन द सेंस कि मतलब बहुत ज्यादा लस्टी होकर के, लेकिन पोजेस तो कर सकते हैं, अच्छा गाड़ी, अच्छा घर, अच्छी बीवी, सुंदर दिखने वाली। तो कौन ऐसा जो नहीं चाहता है? 1 2 3 अच्छे से हाथ ऊपर करिए ना, आधा आधा, हाफ फ्राई क्यों कर रहे हैं आप लोग? ठीक है, नीचे कर लीजिए। सब शुद्ध भक्त हैं यहाँ पे। ऑनलाइन कोई भी यहाँ पे हाथ ऊपर नहीं किया। देखो ऑनलाइन वाले सबके सब हाथ नीचे करके रखे। अब भी बोलने पे हाथ ऊपर हो रहे हैं लोगों के। ठीक है, नीचे कर लीजिए। ओके, तो that's the whole point, that's the whole point, that we all want to enjoy. थोड़ा तो चलता है ना, पूरा नहीं, थोड़ा थोड़ा कर लेंगे। So this is what is being said over here. Okay, so now this particular verse is not only meant for people who are gross sense enjoyers, right? जो मतलब एकदम इंद्रिय तृप्ति में घुस ही जाते हैं, उनके लिए नहीं है। It is also for people who want to enjoy this world by following the Vedas, right? That's the whole point. It's not only for those whom we see they go out in bars, pubs, party, and flash their money, big cars, gadgets, opulences and everything, and use it in a detrimental way. Detrimental in terms of harming their spiritual life. They're not advancing in spiritual life but harming it, right? But if you look, And people, who are coming to temple, they come on every Sunday, Gaur Aarti, they do their, whole program, morning program, Saturday night, they'll come, they'll stay in the temple, attend Mangal Aarti, then Guru Puja, take Prasadam, then do some Seva, again, everything. Now they are doing something, that's good. But then what we see, again, they go outside, and the 6 days, they'll be posting photos of enjoying out with their friends, trekking at this particular hill, having fun in this restaurant, nice food, nice view, and everything. Enjoying subtly, everything, na? Sense enjoyment. हाँ प्रभु जी हम नॉन वेज नहीं खा रहे हैं, वी आर नॉट ईटिंग नॉन वेज, बट वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू क्लब्स, बट ये तीर्थ भी नहीं है ना, भगवान की जगह भी नहीं है, चलो हिल है, गए ट्रैकिंग कर लिया हमने, थोड़ा रजोगुण ज्यादा हो गया था. He'll explain it through the modes of nature, right? So this shloka is for those also, right? Not only for people who are engaged in sense enjoyment in a bestial manner, like animals, right? Animals don't know the boundary. कि sense enjoyment को कितना करना है, कैसे करना है, कहाँ करना है, ये सारी चीजें पता नहीं होती, right? मौत जानते हैं आप लोग? एक ऐसा कीट होता है जो when he sees fire, he's so much attracted by the fire that he flies in it, irrespective of knowing that he'll burn if he enters fire. आग में गया तो जल जाएगा, वो खत्म हो जाएगा. But still he does what? He sees fire and he becomes so attracted that he gets inside the fire just by the illumination. So there are people like them. But these people, what's the point? That they do not know only कि if I indulge in excessive sense gratification, what is the outcome of it? They don't know the outcome only. So they are still indulging, agreeing with the so-called propaganda of people that, since we are having senses are meant to enjoy sense objects. And why you are doing it at half capacity? Do it in full capacity, Let's say if you can remain awake for 24 hours, and what's the point of sleeping for 6 hours? Enjoy 24 hours. Don't leave even an hour. Even what do people say? That turn your 24 hours into 48 hours. That's for encouragement practically, right? But encouragement for what? That you become successful in life, gain money, and then enjoy to the full capacity. Now you do your sadhana and everything, tapasya karo abhi, आगे चल के अच्छी जॉब लग जाएगी, पैसे आ जाएंगे, अच्छा घर लेना, अच्छी गाड़ी लेना, फैमिली हो जाएगी, and enjoy in family life. That's the whole point, right? So this is what, and these people, mostly the people in India, they do not understand the difference. That's the whole point. So we'll refer to this shloka, this particular thing, this pious people who are taking the Vedic principles and utilizing it, actually they do not know that just by becoming pious, it is not possible to attain Krishna. Only by becoming pious, it is not possible to attain Krishna. And where does Krishna say that? So he says in the 7th chapter and 28th verse. I'll just read it out from here. So there are actually, you see, the 4 lines. Bhagavad Gita में आप श्लोकों को देखेंगे 4 लाइन में, right? So we'll read the 1st, 2nd and 4th. The 3rd one I'll explain later, okay? So here what Krishna says, Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam bhajante ma dridhavrata. Like persons who have acted piously in previous life and in this life and whose sinful reactions are completely eradicated, right? They engage themselves in my service, without determination. तो लोगों का ये understanding है. But इसमें जो 3rd line है, the very 3rd line, te dvandva mukta, te dvandva moha nirmukta. That is the whole point. That is, the jewel of this line. That is the most important part of this particular shloka, which says that eradicated are free from dualities of delusion. Being freed from the duality of delusion. Duality of delusion means what? When we figure out, when we do something and we say that this is pious, this is impious, ना? ये पाप है और ये पुण्य है, ये अच्छा है, ये बुरा है. ये मुझे आगे ले जाएगा और ये मुझे पीछे ले जाएगा, पीछे खींचेगा. तो these are known as dualities. द्वंद्व, द्वंद्व बोला जाता है इन्हें. तो यही बताया गया यहाँ पे, ते द्वंद्व मोह निर्मुक्ता. तो द्वंद्व एंड मोह, free from this dvanda and moha. Moha means illusion, practically. Right? So duality and illusion, both of them. One should be free from these both in order to actually, attain Krishna. And again, this is what is said here. Then if we see another shloka from Bhagavad Gita, wherein Krishna says, but what is the possibility of him attaining me? So this shloka comes in the 14th chapter and 26th verse, right? So I'll read that. So this shloka goes as follows: Mam cha yog avyavicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman. Right? So now, what is Krishna saying in this? That one who engages in pure devotional service. Devotional service is not pious activities, right? Then why are there two terms? If pious activities were sufficient, सिर्फ पुण्य करना sufficient होता, अच्छा करो और अच्छा ये सब हो तो भगवान की प्राप्ति हो जाएगी. Then why this word, the devotional service is used? Why are we using this word, devotional service, right? We should understand this, that we are using this word devotional service, or Krishna is using this word in Bhagavad Gita. That means devotional service holds significance in this, right? For example, pious people, they do not understand the difference between spiritual activities and pious activities, right? Let's say one thing. See, for pious people, they both are same, and the objectives are completely different. The outlook, how people perceive it. Let's say you all would have heard of Badrikashram, right? Badrikashram is a place where Lord performed austerities in his form as Naranarayan Rishi, right? So a pious person may go to Badrikashram with a view that by going here I'll accumulate lots of piety. बहुत पुण्य मिलेगा मुझको यहाँ पे जा करके, right? और वो पुण्य किस लिए यूज होगा? जब मैं भोग करूंगा, उस पुण्य से क्या होगा? मुझको भौतिक चीजें मिलेंगी, भौतिक वस्तु मिलेंगी और मैं उसका भोग कर सकता हूँ ना. आगे चल के अच्छा जीवन रहेगा, कोई तकलीफ नहीं आएगी उसके अंदर, राइट? सो दैट्स द होल पॉइंट. दैट्स द होल पॉइंट कि ये क्या होगा? पाइटी के पर्सपेक्टिव से देखो. बट when you consider from the devotee's perspective, what does a devotee think? A devotee thinks that he'll go to this particular place, have the darshan of the Lord, and he'll chant Hare Krishna. That's it. He doesn't think how much piety will I gain, not with that calculative mentality, but the merchant mentality. तो कितना मिलेगा, क्या मिलेगा ना, यहाँ पे जाना अच्छा है, हरिद्वार चले जाऊं, कौन सी जगह पे थोड़ा ज्यादा सिग्निफिकेंस है. So that's the whole thing. That's the whole discussion of this. So this is just a small example that we are giving, right? Now this piety, when we say punya, comes under dharma, right? And dharma is actually propagated throughout Bhagavad Gita. In fact, just Krishna's main motive was what? To establish dharma. So one can argue then how is piety being under dharma is kind of what we can say demoralized, or we are telling that this is not so important. So if you look at it, the very reason why this was spoken, because Arjuna gave an argument when Arjuna said to Krishna, "You take me in the center of the battlefield. I want to see who have come up to fight with me." Right? So Krishna takes Arjuna. Arjuna sees the battlefield, becomes kind of, this is all Leela, not kind of Arjuna can, because he was with Krishna, so Krishna made him fall in illusion and everything. So he comes out and he says that how can I kill my own kinsmen, right? First argument. Then he says that if I kill them, there will be propagation of adharma. Now how adharma? He said, so all these warriors will die, right? Those who are there. So the women's, they'll remain unprotected. Now since the women will remain unprotected, there will be what we can say, generation of Varna Shankaras. Right? So this is as good as propagating adharma. I don't want to, fight just to, propagate adharma. What's the point of me fighting? That, with all this blood, how can I enjoy all the opulence and everything? So this argument was given by Arjuna to Krishna, right? Now, Krishna says what? Krishna first of all clears thing that, what is real dharma, right? And then, after establishing real dharma, defeating Arjuna, what he says, the essence of everything is sarva dharman paritajya mamekam sharanam vraja. So after establishing everything, that what is the real dharma, you're a kshatriya is meant to fight, and at the end what he says sarva dharman paritajya, leave everything, सभी धर्मों को त्याग दो ना, सर्व धर्मान परित्यज्य. So one may think, what's the point of explaining all this dharma, right? So the point is that there is always a higher principle, and lower principles can be compromised in order to attain the higher principle. That's the main thing, right? Everyone has sense of duty, right? When Srila Prabhupada, most of you all would be knowing this pastime, right? Srila Prabhupada, when he first met his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, so he was talking about, the Vedanta philosophy, how about the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission and everything. So Srila Prabhupada questioned him. He said, you are talking about the mission of Lord Chaitanya, but if you look at our own country, it is still under British rule. So our first priority is to free our country from British rule. Then we can talk about spreading the mission of Lord Chaitanya, right? But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj said that he defeated him. He said, like, today they are ruling, afterwards someone else will rule. So this is not bound by the freedom of this. This mission is independent of it. And then he instructed Srila Prabhupada that, you are well-educated man, young boys, and you know good English, right? So you should take up this mission of Lord Chaitanya and propagate it in the Western countries, right? So this was also, we can say a principle that, India must be freed first in order to propagate this. But there was again the higher principle. Irrespective of these independence or so-called independence, our main priority is what? To spread the teachings of Lord Chaitanya all around the globe. That was the main kind of, principle. So from this we can understand the very lives of Vaishnavas is meant to teach us that. They all left, something small for the great. That's the whole point. There are so many devotees. Just think about it, about devotees in Russia. In the early days, if you look, so there was this rule of KGB. KGB. So it's kind of, what we can say, an organization which practically stops the propagation, or they have like really good number of spies, I guess. So they were very much, active during that time. They said there will be no propagation of any religion in Russia, right? But the devotees, what did they do? The devotees, they took risk. And they just somehow got one copy of Bhagavad Gita. And what they used to do now, they cannot get it, everything. So what they used to do is, they used to write it by hand, each and every copy. Just imagine writing this much, it's Bhagavad Gita, by hand. Not printing, not typing on laptop or computer and then printing it, just Control P, that's it, right? So this was not the case. They used to write and then they used to distribute it in incognito mode so that no one can see. And there were devotees who were caught, who were killed, practically killed. So just imagine, to save one's life is a principle, right? But distribution of Vedic knowledge under any circumstances is the higher principle. So they kind of, you can say that they compromised on one principle for the higher principle, right? That's the whole point. Now, so this is what is, dharma is there in our scriptures, which is said, or we can say piety, about piety, right? So Krishna gives the final understanding of this thing, and says that you give up all this mundane dharma and surrender unto me. Right? Now, piety, how does one understand piety? What are the four limbs? Four limbs of piety? और किसको बोला जाता है वो पुण्य व्यक्ति है? Exactly. So that's the whole thing. So our Vedas, or what we can say, throughout the Vedas, we see that what are glorified is dharma, artha, and kama. Moksha. We have missed this out, right? But moksha is not that much glorified in the Vedas. It's only dharma, artha, and kama. Three things are glorified mostly in the Vedas. That's the whole thing, right? So if you look at it, mostly now, most of the people are interested in three things only: dharma, artha, kama. That's it. Moksha mein koi hai interested? No one is interested in moksha, even outside. And out of which prominently people are interested only in two things, that is artha and kama. And they are interested in artha only because of kama. So ultimately they are interested only in kama. That's it. That is all there is to their interest, right? That's the whole point. That, but pious people, they are interested in dharma in a good way. Same goes with the artha, kama, moksha, right? They're not very much promotive or very much supportive of the animalistic approach of sense enjoyment, right? So animalistic approach, by that we can, there are people who utilize it in a wrong manner also. They'll be following the teachings of the Vedas. Example, famous examples are there. Ravana, Hiranyakashipu followed Vedas, they pleased the demigods and all the deities, and then they asked for boons, but in order to enjoy, or we can say in order to kind of exploit. That's the whole thing, right? Now, so this is there. So dharma we are understanding. So dharma is very important for the pious people. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while explaining this, or Srimad Bhagavatam, the very first sloka, dharma projita kaitavatra. So he says that one should give up dharma. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying in Srimad Bhagavatam it is being said. But what type of dharma? It's kaitava, the mundane dharma. So what is that mundane dharma? The cheating dharma practically, right? So while he was having his discussion with Mayavadi sannyasis, right, in Prayag, I guess. So while having this conversation, he said that these Mayavadis, they were practically aiming for this mundane dharma, artha, kama. They were actually not interested in dharma, artha, and kama. They were aiming for moksha. No? That's why in Shankara Acharya's line, the only person who can follow the moksha line is the person who is a sannyasi. No one else. Only they are a fit candidate. Right? So that is why they were aiming for moksha. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said what? That this moksha is very insignificant. Insignificant in what term and to what? He said that prema is the highest. So prema, love. What kind of love? I love my family. I love my dog. I love my community. I love my country. Is that kind of love that we are talking here? What do you think? So love that is being talked here is Krishna prema. That's the whole point. That Krishna prema is something which is way too important. And this is Parama Purushartha. So what is Purushartha? These four things. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. This is Purushartha. This is something that holds meaning in the life of a man, right? The life of a person that he's. But this is what Parama, even above that. Like Atma and Paramatma. Right? So Atma is there, but even above Atma, or who's the higher than Atma, is Paramatma. Right? Similarly, this is Purushartha, and then we have Parama Purushartha. So this Param Purushartha, and what this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, that these four are not even significant as grass in front of Krishna Prema. Even insignificant than Trina. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying in this, So now Krishna himself is coming, right, to establish what? Dharma. Dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? That in order to establish dharma, I'd come, millennium after millennium. That's the whole thing. And in the Shastras, when dharma is being talked about, so dharma is not talked about independent. It's synonymous with varnashrama. So varnashram, every one of us knows, right? So varna means what? Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, right? And ashramas are brahmachari ashram. Then we have grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas ashrams, right? That is the whole discussion. Similarly, if you look at it, every ashram has its own ideology or ideal, right? For example, the brahmanas are not supposed to be sense enjoyers, right? They're not supposed to be, too much in the field of kama. They must refrain from it. Whereas, this thing, this enjoyment, we can say, is available for Kshatriya and Vaishya, right? So these are the two things, that Kshatriya and Vaishyas, for them there is we can say that this particular thing is better than the animalistic way of life enjoying, right? They are pious and everything, but it is not sufficient to attain the ultimate goal. That's the whole point. Even if you are pious, but let's say you're not attaining the goal, then what's the point of being pious? Right? There's no point in it. हम लोग कर क्यों रहे हैं? यदि हमको पता है कि हमारा ये गोल है और मैं जो कर रहा हूँ उससे मुझको, मतलब उससे मुझे सफलता प्राप्त होगी नहीं, तो फिर उसका करने का कोई महत्व है क्या? क्या लगता है आपको? कोई महत्व है? कोई महत्व नहीं. क्यों करें फिर? That's the whole point. That is what written, that even if we stick to this particular life, we'll still miss Krishna prema. You won't be getting Krishna prema. That's the most important thing, right? So now, in this sense, the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is different from the pious materialism, philosophy of Hinduism, practically, and even to those which are mixed with bhakti. कि जो मिक्स भी होता है ना भक्ति के साथ में, कि चलो हम भगवान की पूजा कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हम लोग अपना लगे रहेंगे गृहस्थी में या ये सारी चीजों में, धर्म अर्थ काम मोक्ष ये सब में लगे रहेंगे, भक्ति भी करेंगे, लेकिन अब देखेंगे, if we see that why did Lord Chaitanya preach then? There was already so much bhakti. In previous ages, there were people who were much more pious than us. We'll be having a short story at the end. I'll narrate one of the stories, which is in Krishna book, from which we can kind of get a clue what we are talking about, right? So he came to give us this understanding that unless and until we have material attachments, we cannot get Krishna prema, because these two things cannot go together. That's the whole point. So we must become pure devotees in order to go to Krishna, and which is explained by Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami was the one to whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tasked with this, we can say responsibility to write the literatures, or the, Vaishnava Siddhantas, practically. So he says, what is bhakti practically? He defines the very word bhakti. So he says that anya abhilashita shunya jnana karmadi anavritam anukulena krishnanu sheelanam bhakti ruttama. That if one wants to do bhakti, what is that bhakti? That one must be free, first of all, from the philosophical speculation, as well as so-called, jnana karmadi, the mixed so-called with knowledge and everything. So he's telling in this particular shloka that he shouldn't have any other desire, any kind of material sense gratification, or thinking about profit or gain, by performing pious activities. If I do this, so I'll gain something or I'll profit something. And philosophical speculation, which is jnana karmadi anavritan. So one must serve the Lord in this particular manner, irrespective of all this consideration, with love. With love. That's the whole crux of it, right? So it is not simple, we can say. But in fact, Krishna consciousness is so simple that we miss it. It's the simplest of everything. Right? So simply by being pious, we cannot be Krishna conscious. That's the whole point. And that's why we must follow the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And in fact, this was the very first book which Srila Prabhupada wrote, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, right? So we can say that, where are the context? और ऐसा कुछ तो रिकॉर्ड होना चाहिए जिससे हमें समझ आए, right? Just by being pious, it is not possible to attain Krishna, right? So, how many of you all have Krishna book? Krishna book आप में से कितने को पास है? हाथ नीचे करिए. So this pastime is from Krishna book only, and it is titled The Story of Maharaj Nriga. So Maharaj Nriga, he was, the son of Maharaj Ikshvaku. He comes in the Raghu Vamsha, in which Lord Ramachandra later on, Lord Ramachandra appeared practically. So this is his story. So this goes back, when Samba Pradyumna Charu Bhanu Gada. So these are, the sons in the Yadukul. They went for a picnic in a forest of Dwaraka, right? So when they went for the picnic there, so they became thirsty, right? प्यास लगती है, हम लोग जाते हैं कहीं भी. So they started searching for water, where they saw that there was this big well. And in that well, instead of finding water, what did they see? That there was a big lizard. छिपकली बहुत बड़ी, right? नृग का अर्थ ही वही होता है. तो they were trying to take it out, but that was not possible for them. So what they did, they went back to Dwaraka. They told Lord Krishna about it. And then Lord, being the well-wisher of everyone, he said, okay, let us go and see. So when Lord went, and he saw him, and when he saw him, and he kind of, just went down to touch him, and as soon as Lord touched that lizard, it became just as, very effulgent, a body like a demigod. His helmet was shining just as the sun shines, right? So much bright, bedecked with all pearls, necklaces, all beautiful ornaments, beautiful garments. So now, when he came out, so Lord Krishna, even though he knows everything, but just in order to teach us or just kind of, educate us, he asked that, like he says that, O king or O demigod, you looked so different way back before. So can you tell me all, like, how did you become like this? So now, Maharaj Nrig, what he does, he says that, Lord, you are the knower of everything. But since you have asked, I'll tell you. He says like that. Since you have asked, I'll tell you again. So he says, if you look at the accounts of all the charitable personalities, so you would definitely know about me. He's so much sure. If you look at that chart, you will definitely know about me. Okay. So then he says that, I'm son of Maharaj Ikshvaku. And, I was the most charitable person, he says. And he goes on explaining that, I made charity, as much charity, or I donated as much cows, as much as there are dust particles on this earth. There are drops of water in the rain and there are stars in the sky. So that was the amount that he did a donation, right? And donations not simply to any other person, to well qualified brahmanas searching out, he gave them only. And by cow, it doesn't mean, any cow. थोड़ा बीमार हो गई है तो दे दो दान में. It's not like that. They were all young cows, full with milk, and they gave just birth to one calf only. Because once the cow gives birth to the calf, then only she gives milk. उससे पहले दूध नहीं आता, right? So, and that too not normal cows. Okay, the cows, they had, gold golden plates plated on their horns. Their horns were, practically the gold plates. They had silver, bases of their hooves. They were bedecked with pearls and necklaces, and they were ornated in silken garments, which was decorated with pearls. So एक एक गाय का ऐसा था. And he gave to every brahmana practically. So now, to the brahmanas also he gave these things along with golds, jewels and everything, right? Because he knew that these brahmanas, they are bereft of any material opulence, right? So it is our duty, or it is the king's duty to give the charity to them, right? And after giving that, what happens is that somehow one cow came back again, and the brahmana, he went, and the same cow was again donated to another brahmana. So now the first brahmana, whose cow was actually given to charity, there he accused the other brahmana that how can you steal something, right? How can you steal something from me? So they were arguing, but then the king came in order to pacify or solve that argument. So then the brahmana said that it is a sin once you give something in donation and then take it back, right? And even if you study the scripture, the wealth of the brahmana is known as brahmasva. Brahmasva means the wealth of the brahmana which even the government doesn't have the authority to take. Whatever is kind of owned by a brahmana, even the government cannot take it. That's the whole point. So Maharaj Nrig, he asked for forgiveness from both the brahmanas and said that I am willing to give you all 1 lakh cows in exchange of this one cow. But please don't consider, this cow. Now leave this cow. I'll give you all both 1 lakh cows each of same caliber. But they said no, we don't want that, right? So after that, when Maharaj Nrig went to Yamaraj, so Yamaraj asked him practically that what do you want to do first? Do you want to enjoy the results of your pious activities, which are as much as that there is no end of it? No end of it. I don't know how much you'll enjoy materially. There's no end practically to it. Or you want to get the results of the impious activities. Now, what would have been the intelligent answer? Anyone else? सही चीज क्या होती है उसमें से जो पुण्य भोगना जिसका कोई अंत ही नहीं है उनके लिए, या फिर पाप का फल लेना? इंटेलिजेंट थिंग आई एम आस्किंग, व्हाट वुड हैव बीन द इंटेलिजेंट थिंग? आप लोगों को ऑप्शन दिया जाए कि आप लोग एंजॉय करो अनलिमिटेड टाइम तक, या फिर अपने पाप का घड़ा थोड़ा खाली करके आओ, देखो क्या क्या है तुम्हारे घड़े में, क्या करते हैं? एक बार तो पाप का which depends on a person's personal perspective. Morally, no diplomatic answers. Simple answer. I'm asking you as a person, right? Yes. So it depends upon your perspective. You give your perspective. Tell. पहले पाप में होता, पहले पाप हो जाओ फिर रोज आप बोल। नहीं, ये नहीं, प्रश्न ये था कि यदि आपको दिया जाए कि आप अपने पुण्य का घड़ा है आपके पास और पाप का घड़ा है, तो पहले कौन से घड़े में से आप थोड़ा चखना चाहेंगे, पाप वाला कि पुण्य वाला? श्रील प्रभुपाद लिख रहे हैं, ओके, मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ. It's the most foolish thing, because Maharaj Nrig chose the same thing. He said, first let me clear out my impious debts. He said it's such a foolish thing. He could have enjoyed no end to unlimited. But since he read so, he was made a lizard in that particular well and thrown for many, many years. And then, because there was this one special thing that he did, he says to the Lord that, I always meditated on you from that time onward. I never, forgot meditating upon. And that's because of the pious activities that he did, Lord Krishna came to him and he delivered him. So if you look at it, pious activities in itself are not sufficient. Maharaj Nreg, he did so much pious activity. हम लोग अगर पूरा इंडिया में मिला के अगर आज इतना करने जाएगा ना, पॉसिबल नहीं है on that scale, right? So that's the whole point. Similarly, that is, the answer. What should one do? So this is practically the danger of pious materialism, right? So thank you all for hearing. Any questions, any comments, any queries are welcome if I'm able to answer. That is. Yes, true.
He said that he gave as much laws as there are dust. Whom did he give?
Brahmanas. Brahmanas were given.
Of this one, earth or the whole Navdeep?
Not Navdeep, they were kings of whole universes practically.
Okay.
And these Brahmanas, it's not like you give one cow to one Brahmana. Lakhs and lakhs of cows, kgs of jewels. But what was specific with the Brahmanas, that they used to take only what is required and they used to distribute everything else. They never used to keep it with themselves. Because the Brahmanas at that time, they actually preferred to remain poverty stricken because that was actually conducive in their bhakti. They knew that if we get material opulences, then we'll be entangled and we'll be bewildered by them. That's why it was voluntary. That was tapasya, Hariguru. So it was tapasya practically for them. That's what they voluntarily have accepted,
They would distribute to whom?
Huh?
They would distribute
To the Brahmanas. No. Piche. See, that's why I'm telling you. Charging symbol. So, any other question? I can ask you a question. Sure. Tell. Okay. So, the question goes as follows, right? What are the 4 actually pillars of pious activities? मैं पॉइंट करूं किसी को भी जिसने सुना जो क्वेश्चन कर रहा है मुझको तो पता है किसने सुना है राइट कौन ऐसा जिसको नहीं पता वॉलंटरीली हाथ ऊपर कर 4 ऐसे स्तंभ जो पुण्य कर्म पुण्यता किस व्यक्ति को आप बोलेंगे कि ये पुण्य है पुण्य आत्मा बोला जाता है so you all will have to talk with the people who have heard the lecture now while taking prasada okay I won't be explaining everything again बिकॉज आप लोग एक दूसरों के साथ डिस्कस करेंगे तो आपका भी लेक्चर क्लियर होगा राइट जितने लोगों ने भी ध्यान से नहीं सुना अपनी जिम्मेदारी बनाइए इसको सो एनीथिंग और एनीवन फ्रॉम ऑनलाइन wants to ask question they can put it in comment box I'll read it out so it will be better for devotees here also to hear it out and then we can answer it anyone is there or should we end it oh people have started leaving the meeting, so I think it's good end it, right? Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyavcha patitanaṁ pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaः